Goeiedei, wolkom. My name is Amarenske and today I will be doing a book review of The Core for you, written by Peter V. Brad. This is the fifth and final installment of novels in the Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brad. But I guess there will be another series coming in this world, because not everything was tied up nicely, well, or too nicely, depending on the way you view this. I will get into that later. I did enjoy this book, and for the rest of the review, I think spoilers will hit, because since this is the fifth installment of a series, I cannot tell you that I will not spoil anything from the previous books, and if I cannot spoil anything from the previous books, I also cannot really give my opinions, because this book deals with the aftermath of some of the severe events that happened in the second half of the Skull Throne, which is the fourth installment in this book series. So I'd say let's dive right in this review, and let's talk about a little synopsis first. This book starts off almost precisely where the Skull Throne ends. We have had Roger's death. He has been killed, and the blood feud has been more or less resolved by his now widowed wives, who are only around 18 years old, so they are widows at a very young age. They are pregnant with his children, and they travel back to Everham's bounty, I think it was, to Inevra, who now leads the Crazian people, because Jardir disappeared at the end of 2 books ago, I think. Just like Arlen Bills or the Warded Man. Everyone thought they were dead and just disappeared, but no, they are still alive, and this book is supposed to follow the plot for them into the core. What I thought of that is, it is not done as well as I would have. I thought the plot progression to the core took, comparatively to all the political intrigue in this book, way too few pages, because we have the build-up that takes about half of the book, and even in the second half of the book we see more political intrigue on the earth or world surface in this book than we actually see of the core. Plus the plot lines of the core, they are tied up and almost with a nice little red ribbon. I was not happy with how the ending in the core went. It seems, for the sacrifice that was made, that the ending was too easy, too less of a, how do you say it? There was not enough paid for the ending to warrant this ending. I am spoiling you for the fact that Arlen Bills dies at the end, but the way he dies, and the fact that only he dies, that the struggle to the hive and for him also to the core, does not signify anything. They don't overcome a lot of important character struggles and flaws when they finally end up going to the core with a demon at all. It's all resolved before. There is hardly any fighting with demons when they go to the core. They come a little bit across further evolved people that have lived below the earth surface for at least 3,000 years. And they teach them to fight the demons again, or demon dogs. Magical dogs that first were just hunting dogs. And it's just they travel. Arlen reaches more or less the core and just defeats 90% of the demons in the core and on the surface. And I thought the way it was done was not done very well. However, all the characters are developed. nicely, more than a little bit nicely. They have a lot of character development, especially the leaders in this book. They get a lot of development and a lot of page time. We get like 15 perspectives, I think. Almost close to 20 perspectives throughout the book series, but of course, since some characters die throughout the book or just disappear, those POVs do disappear and others appear because every book gets more and more perspectives. You would think that some of those perspectives, especially in this book, would be completely unnecessary. And honestly, Reagan and Elissa, you could almost do without them, but they do add things to the story. Like every perspective of every character that is added does add something, some layer of depth to the story. It showcases not only how difficult the fight against the demons can be, but also all the struggles that all the people on the surface of this planet, or actually more those two countries, have. Because in the end we get the revelation that was hinted towards throughout the book series, that Krasia and the Greenlands, I forgot the name, the place where the free cities live, basically. We get a revelation that those are only two very small countries over their entire planet. You would thought it would be the entire world, but no, nothing close apparently. So that is what made me think that more than only this series of books can take place in this world, plus the revelation that the dice sort of foretold that Lisha's child, who is, by the way, two-sexed, so hermaphrodite, but actually a hermaphrodite, because it seems that she is raised as a she, by the way, and called Olive. She has both complete reproductive systems, and she can reproduce herself, but in this book she is still a baby. But she has the potential of being the deliverer, so that would hint that maybe a sequel series with her, him, both, like that character is a main perspective. But we could also get some of the other countries' views, so that would hint at a ton of different book series possible after this. I think, like, I enjoyed this ending. I enjoyed the ending on the surface more because it shows the complexities of humans living together and having to deal with racism and how it hurt their humanity and how it hurt how religion hurts like people and stuff. All that stuff is dealt with in this book. Rape is dealt with in this book less than any other ones. It generally deals a whole of a lot with fear and how people can react to fear, but also how their reactions and their actions can change when they are stimulated in the right way, which I thought was a nice little twist. That is something you should take into account, that people can start acting differently if they are motivated or a little bit pushed into the right direction. And just the fact that this book is so beautifully character driven, written in a way that is easy to read, fun to read, and like creates a lot of tension. It is done very well. This book is also edited very well. But the only thing that I fell over, because I did physically read this next to listening to the audiobook, which in my case means I listen to the audiobook and meanwhile, when it's possible, I also read the pages. It is a graphic audio adapted audiobook, which means that what the book says is not always literally read, but more so the described sounds are turned into actual sounds and that kind of stuff. But what my eye caught, not only in this book but also in previous books, is that Enavra, her robes are almost always called diaphanous, which, I mean, it gives you a description of how you can envision them, at least it does for me. But at a certain point, it's no longer necessary to call it that, just write robes or find another word. Like, normally I don't like overly descriptive, overly flowery writing, but I also don't like repetitive descriptions, like in this book, because it did not happen twice. I think that word might be used more than 20 or 30 times in this 800 plus page book, which, if you listen to it, it gets repetitive. And I listened to about half of the books in this series. I also read the 3 novellas that are already out, and I'm definitely going to pick up the next novella, Baron, that comes out, I believe, in September or October, because I'm very curious how that story will go on. I think it will be a bridge between 2 series, because I see this world and the characters that have left obvious hints open at how the story can progress later on as like a segue into the next, I don't know how many books. This might become a new Rift War cycle type thing, where the author starts writing like 8-ish series of books in the same world, and then come a couple of authors in who decides to co-author books with him, also in the same world but from different perspectives or whatever. But that doesn't really work anymore, because this book already is like different perspectives from different cultures, from different places, from different backgrounds and different ways the characters could have been brought up. It showcases so much, and what I thought best of the characters is not only that all their points of views do add something to the story, but all their voices are so distinct. And not even by using a different writing style, but just by using a distinct voice. So that does prove that you don't have to change your writing style to give your characters a distinct voice, which I thought was done well. So I recommend this book series, specifically The Warded Man. I still think it's the best book in the series. I enjoyed this about a 7.5 out of 10. Or a 7 out of 10, because it does have some flaws. It definitely is not the worst book in the quintet, because this series has, like I said, 5 installments. And then 3 other stories that have been brought out, 3 novellas, so to speak. I thought the middle book, the 3rd book, had severe middle book syndrome. It's basically a cloaked sexual romance, and if you like that kind of stuff, that is fine, but these books are supposed to deal with the fight and flight reaction when you have fear, and a lot of horrific things that happen in the night. And then you give me a fucking romance novel. I did not sign up in this series for a romance novel, and luckily I did not get that in this book. Like, also not in the Skull Throne. Like, the characters get like crazy hit points. I wondered in the Skull Throne why some characters were acting the way they did. They were very boasty. They walked in through the night without their heads. And I felt like some characters in this book did it as well. But I thought it got resolved in a decently creative way for what was possible in the books. So I definitely recommend you read this, but just beware of the 3rd book in the series, The Daylight War, because that one gives Enavra's background story, and it made me like the character less, because I like me some devious female characters you don't know all the motives of, and that made her more, like, she already was human, but it humanized her in a way that I did not like. it showed us where she came from, and it was necessary because some of that stuff was used in this book to like create more crazy intrigue in the story, but it did not need like a third of a book. That, at least in that book, it was woven through the current events and flashbacks instead of an entire separate novel that could have been separately published, like in The Desert Spear. Anywho, I'm rambling. I'm stopping my review now. Thank you for watching, and on to the keer.